All right. Well, welcome, viewers, to another episode of When I Grew Up. I'm your host, Amanda Strawhacker, and today we are joined by another dear friend and incredible, inspiring human. This is Alex Turowski. He is a licensed mental health counselor, and he works primarily with adolescents and adults. And today he's going to tell us a little bit about his childhood and what he wanted to do when he grew up. So, Alex, thank you so much for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So, as you know, the first question is always, tell us about your childhood. And if you know what you wanted to be when you grew up, please let us know.
So, from as far back as I can remember, I wanted to be an archaeologist.
Okay. So things took a turn somewhere.
They took quite a few turns.
All right. So tell us about your archaeology dreams.
I think I was just very interested and very curious in the world around me, in the people and places that came before me. I was a very observant kid, evidenced by, there's a story my mom likes to tell when the school bus dropped me off 2 houses down, and she thought something happened because it took me an hour to get home because I would just sort of walk with my head down, just looking at every bug and stick and rock and anything that could take my attention would. And I think I've carried that curiosity with me into my current job, but yeah, things took a turn or two. I'm not an archaeologist, but I still dream about it sometimes.
So why archaeology?
A little bit. So actually, I think it may have actually started as paleontology. I really just like digging stuff up, and I wanted to dig up dinosaurs. And then I kind of wanted to say, wait a minute, I'd like to dig up and learn about ancient peoples and civilizations. I think I just like being outside, and I liked finding stuff and learning about things.
Did you ever go on any digs?
So I didn't actually get to go on any digs, but I went on a handful of talks by the local Connecticut state archaeologist. Now his name escapes me, but I took a few archaeology classes in college, just kind of dabbled in it.
Wow. So this love maintained all the way through higher ed.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. All right. So you wanted to be an archaeologist, and then you say you took some turns. Tell us about that.
So I don't think I thought much about career throughout my childhood. I mean, I think archaeology and paleontology were things that I was really interested in, and I would love going to the museum and love going to these talks and love, reading books and watching shows and stuff about it. I think it wasn't until I was 17 or 18, picked a college, was starting to go, and was oh, I kind of need to figure out what am I going to do here? What am I going to do with this? I remember having some significant pressure from my family to be hey, you got to pick something. Doesn't really matter what, but find something that you're good in and find something that you like. See if you can't meet in the middle somewhere. I was a big time math and science kid growing up. I always loved chemistry, biology, physics, all that stuff. So eventually stumbled on pharmacy. I thought, yeah, I like helping people. I like working in a service role. I like the combination of the math and science stuff. Worked in a pharmacy for many years. It was a stressful job, but I worked with some really great folks. But it didn't take too long before I kind of realized this isn't exactly what I want to be doing.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
What was stressful about it? Because I don't really know anything about pharmacy. I would assume it's hanging out in a Rite Aid, chit-chatting about skin conditions.
The stressful part about working in a pharmacy, as I remember, was it combines all of the worst parts of retail with medicine, I suppose. There's always a big push to get as many prescriptions through the door as you possibly can, while also like being perfect at what you're doing, not making any mistakes to jeopardize anyone's health. So it was just a very fast-paced work environment. There were a lot of things that were outside of our control in terms of like things went wrong with the doctor's office or the insurance company, but those were our fault. So we had to deal with a lot of that stuff. But again, I think that the people I worked with and the culture there made it much more tolerable. It took a while to kind of land on something that, to land on what I'm doing now, basically. I think for a long time, I went into the idea of a career with like, hey, you need to pick something that will pay the bills, and you need to pick something that, you can get some enjoyment out of. I spent a semester studying genetics because it had like a clearly defined career path, and, relatively appealing. But it took about a semester before I was like, yeah, this isn't it either. It was my junior year of college, like halfway through my junior year of college, when I had like the first of many just existential difficult times. Dropped all my classes and said, okay, like let's do this a little bit differently. I stumbled on some psychology research, specifically the research of like Dr. Carol Dweck. She did research on like learning and motivation that I was really fascinated by. I coupled that interest with saying, okay, like I understand that an undergrad degree in psychology may not take me as far as I'd like to go. Eventually, I learned that, hey, what I really enjoy is working one-on-one with people, providing psychotherapy. Like that is a really unique job that I did not picture myself going into kind of until it happened, really. But it's something that I'm really grateful that I'm had the opportunity to do.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing now that positively impacts your community, whatever it means to you, and why?
Yeah, no, that's a really cool question. I am at this very exact moment in between jobs. So I wouldn't say I'm doing, yeah.
So am I, and so are thousands of people around the world. Thank you, COVID.
Yeah. I suppose I would define community as, in the role that I'm in, I would probably say it has to be the people with whom I work and the people and places involved in those people's lives. So I don't think it's just my clients. I think it sort of spreads to their families, their loved ones, the people that they interact with, that kind of thing. And I think I just do my best to try and ease suffering wherever I can. I think that's one thing that I've learned as I've gotten older, and I think that's I'm sure we'll touch on it. But suffering is a very much a normal part of life, and I think just learning how to kind of sit with it and roll with it and just survive it sometimes, as opposed to just sort of live in its absence, because I don't think that that's a thing. Yeah. But yeah, helping people ease suffering, helping people live more fulfilling lives, helping people live more authentically. I think the tough part is that it's hard in this role sometimes to see the scope of the benefit, because sometimes when a client is stable and doing as best as they can, sometimes that's very significant. And it's not necessarily always the like Goodwill Hunting moments that I think sometimes people might think comes with psychotherapy. I mean, I think that the human condition alone is not always an easy thing to kind of go through. I like to look back and remember times where I've been there for clients when if I wasn't there or another provider wasn't there, there weren't anyone else. There wasn't anyone else to kind of do that role. And I think, again, it doesn't always mean that everything gets better and everything's wonderful. But I think just being able to like experience someone's humanity essentially, and be with them through whatever challenges they might be going through, is, I mean, I leaving this last job showed me a bit of that. It was, I mean, admittedly, it was a really weird way to leave, because my very last week of work was when everything sort of shut down. Our office closed to like face-to-face visits. So clients I'd been working with for years, we had to sort of like terminate over the phone. So that was tough. But I had a lot of like, people were happy that I was kind of moving forward and doing something good for myself, but really sad to see me go. And it was sad to say all those goodbyes. You know, you don't always show up week to week with the client. They say, man, like, thanks so much for everything you've done for me. You kind of sit down and say, okay, here's what's going on. Here's all the hardest moments. And so to get a break to kind of look back and reflect, and to hear kind of clients get to describe what they got from the work that we did together, was really nice.
So we talked a little bit about impact that you maybe have noticed or that might be nascent in the work that you do. And I'm curious to hear about maybe one impactful change that you would like to see as a result of the work that you do, either that you personally do or this work in general that you are a part of.
I would really like to see, and I think this is something that you know, I'll continue to strive for, but I would really like to offer people an opportunity to heal from trauma and sort of break the ties of and break the cycle of intergenerational trauma. I mean, I think I'm learning that trauma can look like and feel like and be a lot of different things, helping people say, wait a minute, like the things that I learned from my upbringing, I don't necessarily have to pass that on to like my own children and the people in my family in my life. I can do things a little bit differently. Giving people the tools to do that is something I'd like to do.
Yeah. So you talked about how crazy it is to try to do telemedicine and have to help people through this difficult time of coronavirus and economic shutdown. I would articulate this as a trauma, what we're all experiencing. So, you know, as someone who does trauma therapy, maybe you have some insights for those of us out there who are, you know, scared to look at the news. Maybe what words of comfort or professional guidance would you offer to people who are living right now through coronavirus?
What I'm trying to do and what I might recommend others try to do just to kind of try and get through all of this. Obviously, I think, you know, paying attention to the news to some capacity just to kind of have an understanding as to what's going on, what recommendations and all of that are kind of in place. I think that's important. But limit that because I think that, again, with like the 24-hour news, it's on all the time, and it's I think kind of designed to be a little bit scary. And I don't think, you know, necessarily need to saturate ourselves with that. Take care of yourself as best you can, and whatever that might, you know, look like to you. Eat as well as you can, rest, sleep, exercise, you know, treat yourself, take care of yourself. All the things that are important, you know, without this are just as important now. So I know it's called social distancing, but in reality, it's actually physical distancing. It might require some creativity, but social connection is still enormously important. You know, I think both for I think for everyone.